Grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, the interest. I don't know what just happened. Yeah, having me speak about this. So this is one element of the food cycle, food waste, and it's a subject that many people may find boring, but it's near and dear to my heart, and I endeavor to make it exciting for all of you in the next 15 minutes. So this is what I'm going to talk about, what food waste has to do with climate change, and why I care about it so much, and then a little bit about our food waste collection program that we have here in Canmore. I know not everybody on this webinar may be living in Canmore, but I will be speaking to our program, what to do with yard and garden waste and the materials from the Food from Home program, something called the food waste hierarchy, and a cool pilot project that we're going to be trying out, which involves a food rescue app. All right, so starting off, this is a landfill. This is a typical landfill and what they look like. And when garbage is disposed at a landfill, what happens is that it gets squished down. So the equipment that you see here is squishing down the garbage, which is really important from a waste management perspective, as you want to be really space efficient with a landfill. The other thing that happens is that the garbage gets covered with dirt. So this is, again, important because it helps manage wildlife and helps limit the amount of birds that are stealing garbage and spreading it everywhere. It helps manage fire. But what it does do is having that squished garbage covered by dirt means that there's no oxygen down there and all this piles of landfill waste. So when organic material, which is food or plant material, decomposes in this environment, it's doing so without oxygen. And when you have decomposition without oxygen, methane is created. And methane is not our friend. Methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas, which essentially means that it traps a lot of heat. So the more methane that we have in the atmosphere, the dire the implications are from a climate change perspective. It destabilizes the climate, having too much greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. And methane is much more powerful than the one that we normally hear about, which is carbon dioxide. So that's why we want to avoid creating methane. So luckily we can, and in Canmore, we can now, instead of putting our food waste in the landfill, we can take it to a facility that looks more like this, which is an outdoor composting facility. So the big difference here is that we have food waste decomposing in these long, skinny piles. They're called windrows. And what happens in this environment is that the machinery that you can see in the background is actually turning those piles and turning the material and churning it up, which introduces oxygen in the process. So when you have oxygen as part of the decomposition process, you don't get methane. And what you do get is beautiful compost. So we love compost. We think it's amazing. What compost does is it's essentially a fertilizer or a soil amendment product. And so it can be spread on farmers' fields or in your gardens, in your food from home boxes, and it slowly releases all those nutrients from the food waste and the plant waste back into the new plants and the new food. So it helps keeps the need for synthetic fertilizers down, helps keep the need for pesticides down. It helps retain water, which is really great for plants. It really helps, it creates great soil structure. It's good for the bacteria and fungus that's important as part of that growing process. So yeah, there's really nothing that compost can't do. So how we are collecting it in the town of Canmore, hopefully everybody's who's living here has seen these bins, hopefully you're using them, but it's these food waste, new food waste bins. So we started out with the 5 neighborhood bins. We started out with just 5 because it was a pilot project. So we had to make sure that things worked well and we weren't having any issues before we expanded. The bin on the top left are the little kitchen bins that we give away. So if anybody's interested in getting one of those, we give them away for free. You can show up at the Civic Center once everything's back open and get one from the front desk. If you want this, you can also email me. I'll have my contact information and I can figure out how to get you a bin as well. the whole kind of mechanism of why we collect waste the way we do in Canmore is because of these guys. We really want to avoid attracting wildlife and having food conditioned bears. So the pilot, one of the big things that we needed to test with these 5 bins is whether or not we were potentially attracting wildlife. And luckily we haven't been. It also means that unlike many cities and towns, you can't have a little compost bin in your backyard. So a lot of people do that elsewhere, but we can't do that here in Canmore because of the bears. Fun fact about our awesome food waste bins is that we did a art and design call to help figure out what we're going to put on them and do the wrap for them. And the winning submission was from Pascal Roulette. And what she did is take a day's worth of food waste and make our local mountainscapes out of them. So next time you buy one of the bins, check it out and see if you can recognize which mountainscape or mountain range is on each side of the bin. Because our big ones are all represented, which I think is super fun. In terms of what can go in, it's my kind of general rule is if it was ever alive, it can go in the bin. So if it was a plant or an animal at one time, it can go in the compost bin. It's all meat and dairy. And it's also things like greasy pizza boxes. So if pizza boxes are covered in grease, you're not supposed to recycle them. Like if they're not covered with grease, game on. But if they are, they shouldn't go in the recycling, but they can be composted. Same with like used paper towel and napkins, that kind of stuff can all be composted as well. Some people think that it's only like fruit and veggie peelings that can go in there, but that's not the case. It's basically anything. And the good news is because everybody in Canmore has been really great about composting and not contaminating the bins with garbage. We haven't had wildlife issues. We're able to get some more bins this year. So coming soon in the fall, we're going to have 10 more of these neighborhood bins. Excuse me, sorry. So 4 of them are going on the north side. So people over there will have better access to bins as well as out in 3 Sisters as well, and a few other locations. So it will be a few months. So look for them in kind of September-ish. So relevant to the participants from this program is what to do with yard and garden waste. So the kind of general rule is a little bit of yard and garden waste, all your plant waste from your garden baskets can definitely go in the food waste bins. That's no problem. And somebody buys you flowers and they're spent at the end, that can go in. So anything kind of less than a garbage bag full, that's no problem to put in the food waste bins. Anything large amounts. So if someone has a backyard and they mow their lawn or they're pruning a bunch of bushes and there's like 6 garbage bags full of yard waste, that stuff and that amount needs to go to the Boulder Crescent Recycling Depot. And there's big, huge bins there to collect that. So there's 2 reasons why we just say small amounts in the food waste bins. One is because we don't want those food waste bins filling up really quickly because they are picked up with a frequency based on just people putting their food waste in there. And so if someone comes along and dumps 8 bags of yard trimmings in there, it's going to be full. People will show up with their food waste. And if it's full, we may have a situation where they're tempted to leave it outside the bin. But we don't want that. So we can't have that because of wildlife. The other issue is that this is a picture of where our yard and garden waste goes. So it actually goes just down the road to the Francis Cook landfill, which is on the 1A out towards Phoebe. And yard and garden waste can be composted out there. There aren't wildlife issues with yard and garden waste the same way there is with composting food waste. So that can go nice and close, whereas our food waste actually travels quite far. The composting facility that we have to send our food waste to is up kind of closer to Red Deer. So we don't want to be transporting material that we don't need to be long distances. Okay, so I've talked all about compost, but I just wanted to bring attention to this food recovery hierarchy. So one of the things with compost is definitely better than landfilling, but ideally we want to be kind of at the top of this hierarchy, which is not wasting food in the first place. And then as we go down, there's better things that we can be doing with it than composting. So you can see that feed to animals is on there as well. So one cool thing that happens in Canmore is that the local breweries here actually have somebody come from a fairly close by ranch that picks up all that spent grain and then takes it out and feeds it to the animals there. In terms of kind of reducing food waste at the source, ideally in our composting system, we're only having this unavoidable household food waste going in. So the bones or the eggshells or things that can't be used or eaten should be going in the compost. Anything that can be eaten should be eaten. And they've done a lot of research on this because it's a big deal that there's a significant amount of food that could have been eaten that's going to waste. And the research shows that it's actually quite expensive what this section of avoidable food waste is. And most of it's fruit and veggies. And fruit and veggies are expensive and they're delicious and they're healthy and we should be eating them. So this is one of the issues that I just wanted to bring out and help kind of with talking about our compost, is that if it can be avoided to go in the compost, let's try to do that. And this is a good tool for that. This is one of my favorite websites, lovefoodhatewaste.ca. It has great tips on meal planning, grocery shopping planning to kind of minimize that potential food waste, arranging your fridge so that you have all the perishables up front, and get rid of those first. And then a cool little feature that I like is, when I'm getting broccoli and it's past its good looking phase, and I need to use it up, I can type broccoli in here and all these recipes will pop up for how I can use my broccoli. And this is the last thing I'm talking about. It's this pilot with this food share app called GOAT. It's a Calgary-based organization. When us in the town of Banff and along with the Bow Valley Food Alliance, we're interested in trying this out here in the Bow Valley. And how it essentially works is anybody with surplus food can post it on the app, and people who would like that food can reserve it. Excuse me. I always talk too much and then my voice goes. Sorry, guys. So what happens is if a restaurant makes a pizza and then it should have been on gluten-free crust, but it's not, and they can't sell it, they could, and it's perfectly good and nobody's touched it, they could post it on the app and somebody could reserve that pizza and say, and they can say like, hey, come get that pizza between 4 and 5 and you can have it, or for a reduced price. You can have it for free or we'll discount it for you. And somebody, the user, me as a user of the app, I can say, yeah, I want that pizza, I'll come grab it. So that's essentially how it works. And we encourage people to check out the app, and we just need a critical mass of users before it can really work well. And you need to have both the kind of food providers and food buyers and users of that working on it at the same time. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And thank you.
Thank you, Amy. My one question actually is, when the GOAT app is up and running, more users are on it, will there be some sort of a promotion or way to let the community know that it's ready for takeoff? Or are we kind of hoping that people will get on there and be the change, be the momentum?
Yeah, I mean, kind of both. We are just hoping that people start using it slowly. I would like to work with a number of partners to try to get the word out to the world to just start signing up. We were hoping to get a whole bunch of restaurants signed up to agree to post food, but the challenge with the pandemic obviously is it's a challenging time for restaurants and they don't have a lot of extra food right now because they've been really doing takeout only for so long and making food to order. So there is actually an opportunity now. The app works both ways. As a resident, if I go out and buy a bunch of sourdough bread and bagels, and then the next day I decide I'm over carbs and going on the paleo diet, I can also post that kind of thing on the app and say, hey, got all this stuff. You want it? Take pictures of it. Say that it's sealed before the before date. I can make that available too. So we're actually just trying to spread the word, and would love some help with promotion if people are able to do that.
Great. So everyone should download the app and tell their friends. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Amy. If no other questions.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
go
It's
for it, Cody.
I was wondering if the I remember at the start of the pilot project, there was not a lot of contamination, and if that's changed a lot, because I noticed with the compost that there's little bits of stickers, and I noticed that with the city of Calgary, it obviously it doesn't decompose, so there's little bits of stickers on the fruit, which a lot of people don't take off. And if you've noticed if that's gone up or down or not really changed much.
Thank you for asking that question. Actually, I was trying to cut my content down, so I took my sticker lecture away. But so there hasn't been really a change. Our contamination is still really, really low compared to most cities. I noticed that too. It was really interesting when we got the compost back of how much tiny plastics. So the reason those get in is because after the compost process happens, they screen it. And so any like plastic bags or bigger stuff gets screened out, but those little stickers and tiny twist ties and little bits of plastic get through. So the processor and the end users, which are usually farms, they have a certain tolerance for a little bit of plastic. So we're okay so far, and it's all good for now. And it has kind of been maintained throughout time at the same level, but it isn't ideal. And so if people could take the time to take those stickers off, it would really help the end product.
All the little things that you don't necessarily think about. Why aren't they just making the stickers compostable? Maybe in the future. All right. Any other questions for Amy? Okay, Lou, would you like to share your screen and take it away?
All right, just keep it up here. Okay, everybody can see that? Great. Okay, so Amy touched on some really great resources for reducing food or food waste, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper and talk about some easy and creative ways that we can actually reuse those food scraps. I'm talking like things that you cut up, you use what you need, and then the rest you're going to throw in the compost. But yeah, there's some really great ways that we can reuse those. And I know it might sound a little bit strange to eat food scraps, but I promise you're not going to be like eating a pile of garbage or compost. And so not only is reusing the scraps good for all the environmental and food waste reduction reasons that Amy went over in her presentation, but it's a great way to cut down on food costs. So when you reuse those scraps, you're stretching that food further and cutting down on the cost of food. And regrowing food scraps is a really fun little hobby. It's a great way to expand your garden, and it's actually a lot of fun for kids and a great introduction to growing for them. So let's get started. We're going to start with what's in your container garden, and I hope you guys have been enjoying the kits you received and that everything's starting to sprout and grow. So radishes, carrots, lettuce, and spinach, depending on how heavily you seeded them, they might need to be thinned. And so don't throw those thinnings away. Those thinnings are microgreens, and you can see them in the photo there unless our squares are blocking them. But microgreens, they're the same microgreens that you might buy, at the market or at a health food store. And despite their small size, they are a nutritional powerhouse. They're loaded with potassium and iron and magnesium and antioxidants. And the nutrient content is often it's concentrated, so it's a higher level than what's in the more mature vegetable greens. So they're super, super good for you. And you can add them to salads or sandwiches, or you can use them to garnish soups or curries or pizza. And so when if you do need to thin them, you can just pull them like the whole root out, like the person in the photo is doing, or you can take like a little set of scissors and just snip them kind of right at the soil level. And then you've got super yummy, nutritional microgreens. So don't throw those out. Okay, moving on to carrot tops. So they're another garden or food or garden scrap that sadly tends to go to waste. People cut them off, eat the carrots, and the rest goes in the compost. And that's really sad because there's so much that you can do with them. They taste a little bit like Swiss chard or parsley, and you can easily substitute carrot tops for any recipe that calls for parsley. So like tabbouleh, anything like that. You can tear them up and toss them into a salad or throw them into your morning smoothie for some extra sneaky greens. And yeah, for anybody that doesn't do cilantro, and I know there's a lot of people out there who think it tastes like soap, like Laura. I thought you didn't like cilantro. Yeah, it's a great substitute for cilantro.
For the record, I love cilantro. It's parsley that I really don't.
Really? Okay.
I know.
Maybe you'll still like carrot tops. And you can also make carrot top pesto with them. So pesto is one of my favorite kind of fancy last minute meals to make. And this carrot top spinach version is a great substitute for the usual basil version. So you just use 1 cup of washed and spun carrot tops, a cup of spinach leaves, 2 cloves of garlic, a 1/4 cup of pine nuts or cashews, 1/2 cup to 1/3 cup olive oil, and a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. And like pesto is pretty forgiving or like easy to switch up to your taste. So you feel free to throw in more garlic or more olive oil, whatever suits you. So combine the carrot top, spinach, and garlic and pine nuts in a food processor and pulse that until it's finely minced. And then just drizzle in the olive oil and mix it up until it's nice and smooth. And then pulse in the Parmesan cheese. And then you've got yummy leftover veggie scrap pesto, and it tastes great. And then you can use it how you would any other pesto. So toss it with some pasta. You can spread it on nice crusty bread like they've done here, or use as a sandwich spread. So don't throw out your carrot tops. And if you're ever at the market, a lot of people just tear them off and just take the carrots, and there's like a huge box of carrot tops underneath. So I'm sure you're just allowed to help yourself to those and make lots of pesto. All right, moving on to radish greens. So greens tend to reflect the flavor of their particular veggie bottom. So radish greens kind of have like they're a little bit spicy. They kind of have that bite to them, and they're really, really delicious. And they are also a nutritional powerhouse. So they are like right up there with broccoli and kale, and they're high in vitamin C and calcium. And yeah, the leaves and stems are both edible. You just want to avoid the thicker stem right close to like the actual radish root itself, because it's a little bit tough because it's thick. And so you can use the leaves in a salad or on a sandwich, or a really nice way to prepare them as a side dish is just to saute them in some olive oil, garlic, and red pepper flakes. And yeah, they're really great. Beet greens are another green that people often they use the actual bulb of the beet itself and toss out those delicious, beautiful, healthy greens. They have a really nice, sweet, earthy flavor, and the leaves and upper stems are edible. They're packed with lots of great nutrition: iron, protein, calcium, magnesium, zinc, and fiber. And just like radish greens, they're great sauteed in olive oil with garlic and red pepper flakes. Or if you want to try something kind of different, you can try baking them. So you use a pound of beet greens, give them a good wash and pat them dry, 2 tablespoons of melted coconut oil, a 1/4 teaspoon salt, and preheat the oven to 350. Place the greens on a parchment lined baking sheet. brush them with the coconut oil and sprinkle with salt, and then bake them in the oven for 15 to 18 minutes. And then they get nice and dry and crispy, kind of like a kale chip. And so you can just eat them as is, kind of like a chip, or you can put them into a sandwich, or you can crumble them up and use as a garnish for soup or curry. And they are just awesome. And yeah, don't throw away those beet greens or compost them, eat them. And then it's really easy to make your own veggie scrap broth too. So many people don't, or making your own broth is really easy to do. People don't realize how easy it is. It's cost effective, and it's often healthier than the store-bought versions because you're controlling the ingredients and the sodium amounts. So here's how you do it. You might not be able to see the top photo with our faces there, but that is a gallon Ziploc freezer bag. So save all the peelings and stalks and leaves and ends of cores from the veggies. Make sure that you've washed them all thoroughly first. And then store those scraps in your freezer in a gallon Ziploc freezer bag. Onions, carrots, celery, and garlic are kind of the key ingredients for broth. So every time, and we use those vegetables all the time, so it's pretty handy. So chop them up, we're talking ends of the onions, like the ends of the carrots, the peelings from onions and garlic, all that can go in. Just keep throwing it into your Ziploc bag and putting it back in the freezer till the next time. And then there's other vegetables you can add too that give it a great flavor, like bell peppers, like the whole core can go in there. You can see it in the bottom picture kind of. Leeks, green onions, and mushrooms. And then herbs can go in, thyme, parsley, cilantro, rosemary, kind of anything goes there. There are a few veggies that you do want to avoid. So cruciferous vegetables like cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli can make the broth a little bit bitter. So you might want to avoid those. And then you want to avoid starchy vegetables as well, like potatoes, because they can make the broth cloudy. When you make this, like it's never going to be the exact same twice because you're going to have different amounts of the vegetables, but you can experiment and see kind of what tastes best for you and say, oh, you know what, I didn't like it when I added in all, too much celery or whatever works for you. Experiment. Okay, so here's how you make it. So once you've got that nice full Ziploc bag full of scraps, you'll also need 13 to 15 cups of water, a teaspoon of coriander seeds, a teaspoon of whole peppercorns, 2 bay leaves, whichever, 1 to 2 sprigs each of fresh thyme and rosemary. And then you can throw in some extras too. So extra garlic, onions, parsley, and some salt to taste. And so just throw the scraps into a large stock pot and add the water and the remaining ingredients. And just cover and bring it to a boil and reduce the heat to a simmer and cook uncovered and stir it occasionally. And once you cook for an hour and take the pot off the stove. And then you just want to remove all those vegetable chunks with a slotted spoon and then set a strainer over a large bowl and then pour the broth in, and that'll catch any little bits that were left behind by the spoon. And then just let it cool completely at room temperature. And then you can just divide it into whichever storage containers, or you can even use freezer bags, and you can keep it in the refrigerator for a week, or you can freeze it for up to 3 months, 3 weeks. I think I've got under there, I can't see it. Yeah, and so then you've got your homemade veggie scrap broth, and it's delicious, and you can, control the contents. It's great. Okay, now I'm going to talk about regrowing food scraps. So many people don't realize that you can grow new vegetables from veggie scraps. Some grow quickly and easily, and some take a little bit longer, but it's a lot of fun. It's a great project, an introduction to gardening for kids. They love it. And it's a great way to cut down on food costs as well. There's many different types of veggies that can be grown. So here's just a list of some of them. So potatoes, onions, garlic, leeks, and shallots, celery, carrots, turnips, parsnips, beets, and any other of those root crops, lettuce, bok choy, and other leafy greens, cabbages, and herbs. And I'm just going to go over a few of the easiest ones to regrow. So green onions, I've been regrowing green onion cuttings for several years now, and it's super easy, super rewarding, and super convenient, and I love it. So, and I've told a lot of people about it, and they're like, this is life-changing. Like I have constant supply of green onions now. So what you do is you cut the green onion. So you want to leave about 1 to 2 inches at the root end. And there's 2 different techniques. And if you can see the photos on the side, if our faces aren't blocking them, there's a water method and there's a soil method. So I'll go over both. So starting with the water method, you just place that root end in a jar and add enough water to cover the ends about halfway up, or you just really want to make sure that those stringy roots are covered with water. And then you just check and change the water every few days. It's pretty simple. The other option is, so place those root ends into potting soil buried about 2 centimeters deep. And then you just want to keep the soil moist like you would with any other plant or veggie that you're growing. And place the jar or pot on a sunny windowsill. And after a few days, you can see those green shoots are going to start to emerge, if you can see in the top photo. And then by, that's day 2, the top photo, the bottom one's day 8, and you can see how much they've grown already. So the difference between the water method and the soil method, they're both super easy. The water is obviously really simple, and it will give you a harvest of green onions for a few weeks. The problem is that water doesn't have any nutrients, so that eventually the green onions, they'll kind of stop growing and they'll lose that vibrant green color and get a little faded, and then they're kind of done. But for a few weeks, you can keep getting cuttings and it's great. With the soil method, there's nutrients in the soil to keep feeding those green onion roots. So they will still stay green and vibrant for months and grow strong. So both super simple and easy. And it's just so great to, have that constant supply anytime you need it for a recipe or want to put some in a salad. Celery is another plant you can regrow from scraps. It's not as quick as regrowing green onions, but it's still a pretty cool little project, and you will get some veggies from it. So you want to cut the stalks off of celery and leave about 2 inches of the bottom, and then place that remaining stem in a shallow dish with about a ½ inch of water. And so you can see in this photo, they've suspended the celery with toothpicks, which you can do, and it kind of allows, the water underneath to, to breathe a little bit. So there's some space between the bottom of the bowl and the celery. I've always just set the celery right in the bowl, and I've never had any issues. You just want to make sure that you're changing the water regularly so it doesn't get kind of slimy and yucky, or that it doesn't dry out. And so, either method, toothpicks or no toothpicks, I think it works just fine. And place it in a sunny windowsill. And like you said, change the water every couple of days, and then watch your celery grow new shoots. You can see it in the picture there. It's really cool. And once the roots develop, you'll see kind of the stringy roots coming out of the bottom of the celery. At that point, you can transplant it into a pot or directly into your garden. And the same technique can be used with lettuce. So romaine lettuce is kind of the best option for this. And you're not going to grow like a huge celery or romaine like you would buy at the store, but you will get some new shoots and leaves. Like those nice tender little kind of celery stalks. So it's a lot of fun, and easy to do and super fun for kids too. Okay, so herbs, you can grow new herb plants from stems, and this is called propagation. And so basil, mint, cilantro, parsley, thyme, oregano, rosemary, sage, so many herbs propagate well. And so you want to remove the lower leaves from about at least a 10 centimeter long stem, and place the stem into a small jar or glass of water. And you just want to make sure that the leaves are above the water level. If the leaves are in the water, they're going to get slimy and yucky and gross. And then just place it in a sunny window. And then once the roots are growing, like you can see in the photo there, You can transplant it into containers or directly into your garden. And then again, it's just so nice to have that constant supply of herbs. And yeah, you can do this with a bunch of herbs that you've grown at, or sorry, a bunch of herbs that you purchased at the store. It's super easy and lots of fun. Okay, so you can also make all natural, all-purpose citrus cleaner with food scraps. And so more and more people are realizing the benefits of making their own natural cleaners. It's simple to do, it saves them money, and it's healthier for you and it's healthier for the environment. So all you need to do is collect citrus rinds and gather them in a glass mason jar. So oranges and lemons and limes and grapefruit peels will all work. So if you're a family of 4, you might accumulate those rinds really quickly. If you're, if you're slower to collect them, you might want to store that in the fridge just so that the peels don't start to go moldy. And so once you've collected kind of a jar full of the citrus peels, just cover the rinds with white vinegar. And white vinegar is antimicrobial, so it's really great for cleaning. And put the lid on the jar and leave it on your counter. You want to keep it at room temperature at that point, and just soak it for 1 to 3 weeks and shake the container every few days, just to make sure everything's nice and mixed up and things are fermenting nicely. And the longer you let it soak, the more of that citrus scent and properties that will be infused. And so after the 1 to 3 weeks, you can strain it with a fine mesh sieve or a cheesecloth, just to make sure that no little bits are going into your cleaner, and pour it into a spray bottle, and you're ready to clean your house with lovely all natural homemade citrus cleanser. Coffee ground body scrub. Okay, so I haven't actually tried this yet, but I thought it sounded pretty interesting and thought it was a really great way to use up some of those leftover coffee grounds from your morning caffeine fix. So you use a 1/4 cup of used coffee grounds, 3 to 4 tablespoons of coconut oil melted, tablespoon of honey, and combine all of those ingredients. If it's too loose, you can add more coffee grounds. If it's too dry, just put in some more coconut oil or honey. Store it in an airtight glass container, and yeah, keep it in your bathroom for your morning shower so you can, have nice silky smooth skin and smell like a coffee shop. So I'm gonna try this pretty soon. Yeah, and if any of you try it, I'd love to hear what you think about it. So that's the end of my presentation. Yeah, I hope I've just kind of inspired you to get creative with some of those food scraps in your kitchen and garden, and just, yeah, try something new, and yeah, reduce your waste. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that I didn't cover, ways to eat the scraps, regrow things, or use them for household items. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the presentation, and I'm curious, I'm sure, not sure how much you've done, but if you want to share in the chat anything that you've tried, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear what you've done or answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Lou. I know I'm super inspired and want to try everything that you just offered.
Awesome.
Especially my 2 favorites that I will shout out are the veggie broth, like carrot peels and everything. Instead of buying carrots and celery specifically to put in broth, like you can just use the peels and the nubs and whatever.
Absolutely.
Revolutionary. As well as the growing or propagating herbs.
Yeah,
so cool.
Super simple and easy to do. Yeah, and the green onions. I mean it. The green onions is so simple and life-changing. It's, everyone loves it.
Yeah. So many cool life hacks.
I'm all about the life hacks.
Any questions from the crowd? Or like Lou mentioned, any other ideas Anything you've done before with food scraps?
One thing I saw when I was kind of deciding what to include in my presentation was soaking banana peels in water. And then you can pour it onto your garden. And apparently it's great fertilizer.
That is cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, bananas are full of nutrients, so it checks out. I believe it. All right, well, if we don't have any questions, we can keep this conversation going on our Bow Valley Food from Home Facebook group. Once we post this, definitely will be a good inspiration to comment when you've tried things, what your thoughts are, and if it went well for you, if not, tips and tricks to make it awesome. Yeah. Oh, this just in, some ideas. So Angela has said, save the water you steam vegetables with and keep it in the freezer and use it to make your veggie broth. Another awesome idea. So many nutrients that go
Super
into
great
it.
tip. Oh, sorry, Laura. I was going to say, I've heard people do that and then water their gardens with that too. Yeah.
I love it. And Elaine, thank you for thanking us. Shout out to Amy and Lou for the terrific presentations and great suggestions. All right, well, if that's it, everybody have a wonderful night and enjoy the heat wave that is coming our way. Make sure all your plants are nice and watered and facing the sun.
Happy gardening, everyone.